Live, maybe we should go live first. Okay. Hello, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, and this is our regular
Maybe
meeting
we
with
should go live
executive
first.
session of the Litchfield Governing Board. I would like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody could please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda will be a moment of silent reflection. Thank you for that. We are going to move right on to our next item on the agenda, which is recognitions and celebrations. And this will be done by Director Nuanez, who was able to make it for our meeting. So I'm very excited.
Madam President, members of the governing board, esteemed guests, both present and online. Thank you. It is good to be back while I play catch up from vacation. Tonight's recognitions or celebration is our Summer Boost program. We've kicked that off and we have that going at Corte Sierra, Mabel Pageant, Palm Valley, and Verado Heritage. The celebration is that we have 950 students currently going right now, and that is the largest turnout for our Summer Boost program to date. So we continue to provide the educational excellence for our students so they can continue learning through their summer break. The other one thing I did want to mention as a celebration is we did have a little small glitch with our transportation beginning, but we are getting much better at rectifying those situations, and now things are running smoothly. So having the transportation and making sure they're getting into their seats on time, I think is a great celebration for us as we continue to improve our transportation department as well. So those are our celebrations for tonight.
Thank you. That's great. I'm super excited to hear we have so many students participating. That's wonderful for those students to be able to have that opportunity, that we're able to provide that for kids in our district. Next up on the agenda is going to be the fiscal year 23 tax credit donations and expenditures presentation. And this is going to be done by Executive Director Vaughn.
All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight for a report out on the district's tax credit program for fiscal year 2023 to date. I can't quite change the slide, so give us one moment. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance and funding, as well as student success. Arizona's tax credit program was passed into law in 1997 and provides individuals with the ability to claim a non-refundable tax credit for certain fees paid to Arizona public schools for qualifying expenses. Tax credit contributions are limited to $200 for single or filing as head of household, or up to $400 for married taxpayers that file jointly. Tax credit donations have strict eligibility requirements for our spending of those funds. You can see on the slide the questions schools have to answer yes to in order to use tax credit funds for an expense. For example, the activity must be sponsored by the school for enrolled students, be optional and non-credit, supplement the district's educational program, and if a fee has been approved by the governing board, it has to be able to be waived by site administration. Tax credit donations can also be used for character education programs. Character educational programs have to cover at least 6 of the character traits on the slide. There's also a temporary allowability to be able to use tax credit funding for capital items related to extracurricular programs or character education. This expansion of eligibility is only available until June of 2024. So we have one more fiscal year with that allowability. This slide shows tax credit activity to date for the 2023 fiscal year. At a high level, you can see the district brought in about $122,000 in tax credit donations and spent $211,000 of tax credit funds. The largest spending areas were for student clubs, special areas such as music, band, choir, fine arts, and drama, as well as field trips. I think it's important to talk briefly about how these monies are actually spent. When a donor donates using tax credit, they have the opportunity to restrict it to specific allowable uses or to donate it unrestricted. Site councils are directly involved in working with site administration to allocate undesignated tax credit funds to areas that would best support the school. Looking at a broader time horizon, we can see that the district's tax credit revenue declined during the pandemic and has not recovered. Tax credit spending is picked up with field trips returning. This is being supported by the tax credit fund balances that the schools have been carrying forward. By and large, a majority of schools spent more than revenue received, again supported by fund balances. 3 elementary schools use tax credit funds for additional special support in an art aid. Each year, the district also receives tax credit donations that are not designated to a school. Our practice has been to designate those donations to schools that do not typically receive a lot of tax credit support. For this year, that school was Corte Sierra, and next year it will be Rancho Santa Fe. Based on the trends presented, we also plan to hold training during our back-to-school planning on the allowable uses of tax credit funds with schools to encourage solicitation of tax credit donations, as well as to continue to facilitate the spending down of the carrying over balances. Beyond the expenses already discussed, elementary schools tend to use their tax credits as shown on the slide, including large field trips, supporting clubs, fine arts, and other eligible programs. Spending at the middle schools are typically similar to elementary with the addition of athletics. Parents and community members are informed of tax credit donation opportunities through school newsletters and the district website. Donors can mail checks to the district office, donate at their child's school, or pay electronically through a link provided on our homepage. District employees may also contribute through payroll deductions. Approximately 22 employees are donating through those payroll deductions. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you might have, and I also have our Director of Finance, Wendy Taylor, here in case we have any questions that she may be able to help answer as well.
Thank you. Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions. Thank you for the presentation. One comment is that I think that Obviously, during the pandemic, we didn't have the opportunity to spend as many of these funds as we wanted to. We weren't having field trips. We didn't have a lot of the clubs and the organizations. But now that we are completely back on track, I think we should encourage these campuses to spend these balances, because the parents that participated and gave the tax credit dollars, for years, their children are already gone. They're out of these schools by the time they're actually spending them. So I know it's important to save for what you need and spend it wisely, but I do think that we need to encourage campuses to spend appropriately during the year so that parents feel as if they're getting the value from the dollars that they're contributing.
Mr. Owens,
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, I have 3 points I would like to make or discuss. My first is really jumping on the point that Board Member Clymer just made, which is that I would like to continue to see these balances spent down, especially during this time where the capital expenditures are permitted. That could be continued, but there's no guarantee of that. So my kind of comment on that, or something I think that we should potentially consider, Executive Director Vaughn or CFO Vaughn, I don't know what I should call you now, is should we consider some sort of guidance to the principals and or the site councils on a maximum or minimum balance as a best practice in order to encourage that? Because I think we're asking them, I know that the site councils are in charge of the undesignated funds, and there are some of the funds that are designated specifically to field trips, for example, but I'm not sure that based on the skill set of a principal or a site council member, that they would know how much is too much or how much is not enough in these funds. So again, to recap that, I would just consider providing some guidance to them as a best practice from the district. Is that something that we've done in the past, or do you know anything about anything like that?
Yeah, I don't believe we have done that in the past. It's certainly something we can incorporate into that training that I mentioned we plan to do during the beginning of the new school year, and provide, potentially a handout that the schools can share back with their site councils. It would be an interesting discussion to have. I think the appropriate level of balance very much depends on how the school has historically used the funds. For example, if you're one of the schools that have been supporting a position out of the fund, that may constitute a reason to carry over a larger amount than if you're, just doing one-off expenses as things come up. But we can certainly have some discussion around that and provide some general guidance, potentially broken up into those 2 different categories of, if you are a school who's using it in this sort of way, you may consider having this sort of balance. And if you are a school that uses it in this other sort of way, potentially that appropriate balance is less.
Okay, great. I think if you could, I will leave the particulars of that in your report, but I think that would be potentially useful to the folks, boots on the ground making these decisions. My other point is, back in the day, one of the main ways that I got involved in the district was through tax credit. And at one point we had launched a kind of marketing campaign for that. And I know that some of the schools at different points in time have done different, 12 days of tax credit around the Christmas holiday and that sort of thing. So now that we're past the pandemic and we're kind of in a new reset mode, can we consider doing a new marketing campaign? Because obviously the pandemic, we were hit, we couldn't do field trips. So some of the parents, because we have turnover, basically, we have this window of parents that are in our district for potentially 9 years. And in the last 3 years, some of those parents are no longer with us, and some parents are new to us. So I feel like we have to have this continual campaign about what is tax credit? What do we do with this? How is this used? And so I would like us to consider a new campaign to increase the participation in tax credits. And I think this coming year might be a good opportunity for that. Again, I don't need to, dictate how that might look, but I'm hoping, Mr. Vaughn, that you might be able to say that's in the works, or maybe you could help to, kick that off. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. That's why, part of why in that training, I was saying that we're going to provide some guidance on how best to solicit more donations, because when I look at the data, what I see is that schools potentially have figured out certainly allowable ways to spend it, because they are spending more than they're bringing in, but they haven't had that same renewed focus on bringing in revenues. And while I can appreciate the desire to spend down the balances, I'm always thinking about what happens when those balances are no longer there. I want to support the schools in a way that they can build sustainable uses of these funds, and they're not running into a day where they're having to cut things they've gotten used to because of years of accumulated balances and us using it. So that certainly would be part of the training that we were going to provide to schools. And I certainly welcome the opportunity to work with our team on the public relations side to build more of a marketing strategy to external families and community members, because as you know, not everyone who donates has to be a family member or a parent in our district. So I do think that would be an appropriate thing to work with our public relations team on.
Yes, agreed. That sounds awesome. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
So I think that I agree. Well, I'd like to see us spend it down, like to spend the funds and use the funds for what they're coming in for and what parents and community members, because you're right. The majority of our area is not parents, right? And so we're missing out on an opportunity to get way more tax credit dollars than we do. And it's a benefit to those who donate to the schools, and it's a benefit to our students. So I personally would rather see us, if we're only got so much time in a day, to right now focus on how do we get the word out? What do we need to do to solicit more of the tax credit donations? And then once we kind of figure that out, move on to making sure we're spending and coming up with that minimum maximum kind of thing. And I agree that every campus is going to do it different. So that's not going to be a one size fits all answer for our different campuses. But I would very much like us to work on reaching out to our community more and seeing what we can do to increase our tax credit donations. You see some districts in this state that get significantly more money than us, and many of them are not even bigger than us. So they're doing something right that we're not, and we can figure that out for sure. I have faith in our district and all our employees that work here to work on that. But a big thing I would like also to see in our schools is for our schools to really advertise and promote what they're spending those tax credit dollars on, making sure that that information is getting out there so that those who are donating can know this is what the donation I gave helped for these students in this campus. But that's all that I had. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. Next up on the agenda is our Science Curriculum Adoption Committee presentation, and this is going to be from Director Combs and her team.
All right, let's try that again.
Much better.
Good evening, Madam President and governing board members. It is my pleasure to present our final recommendation for the science curriculum adoption. So the recommendation is that as of 2018, Arizona Department of Ed did adopt new science standards. And these standards give more attention to the dynamic, creative, and collaborative process around science and learning science. There's also a greater opportunity to integrate ELA and math standards into our science as well. And we are recommending that the governing board approve the science curriculum that's being put forth by the Science Adoption Committee. And this curriculum will give our teachers and students guidance for implementing these new standards and provide a framework for instruction necessary to help them achieve proficiency. It is aligned to our student success and finances and resources pillar in our strategic plan. And we do believe that it is what is best for kids, because adopting a comprehensive K-8 curriculum will be aligned, that's aligned to our state standards, will provide a deep and comprehensive learning progression for all of our students connected to those core ideas of science. Those impacted would be our K-8 students, K-5 teachers, and 6-8 science teachers. Our timeline would be that we would implement the 6-8 next year, or I guess coming up year. And K-5 would continue with our supplemental material of mystery science. And then the following year, we would implement our K-5. That is a revised timeline after discussion with the Science Adoption Committee. They believe that this was the best timeline. It's really important to note that we are not an NGSS state, as Arizona did not adopt the next generation science standards. We are what we call a framework-based state, where we used the framework of the cross-cutting or the three-dimensional science standards for instruction. But that does create somewhat of a problem for us, because publishers are not going to create just specific curriculums for Arizona, because any state that chose to be the framework state, they pick their own. So we're the only one that has those standards. So it does present some complications when we're looking at selecting a comprehensive curriculum. Why should we select this? Really, it's to ensure that we are providing a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And I've given you kind of a definition of what that means, but to break it down, it means that what science looks like and is being taught in 3rd grade at Corte is the same as what it looks like at Rancho, is the same as what it looks at Verado Heritage in 3rd grade. And right now, we cannot say that we are ensuring that guaranteed and viable curriculum. So our current reality is that mystery science is really only a supplemental curriculum, and it is sporadically used throughout K-5. Last year, about 3,000 lessons were only introduced to our students for the full year. At our middle school, we have a scope and sequence that's been created, which means that for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we have units that have been created, but there are no lesson plans with them, except for in 6th grade, 1 unit has a full set of lesson plans. 7th grade has 2 units, and 8th grade has 2 units out of the 4, which means our middle school teachers are really left to create their own lesson plans, find their own resources, make up their own assessments, and it looks vastly different across all of our middle schools. Also, that creates a problem when we're looking at common assessments. There are no common assessments that are created, and a guaranteed and viable curriculum is one that guarantees that that curriculum being taught is also being assessed. In AZ Sci this year, our 5th graders scored 40% of them demonstrated proficiency, and in 8th grade, 34% demonstrated proficiency. Again, demonstrating the need for a rigorous, deep, complex curriculum. For our middle school, we also have a lack of teacher retention, and you can see for the 3 years that I have there. In 21-22, we hired 4 new science teachers. Last year, we hired 7 new out of the 30, and this year we're hiring 10 new out of the 30 middle school teachers, and currently 6 of those are still open. So it's a definite problem. So I just want to review the timeline and the process of how we came to this final conclusion. In December, we opened up the committee to anyone that was interested, and we took interest from our different stakeholders, our different teachers and members across our teaching staff. On the 23rd, we did select that, and I want to, let me find my page for that. We had representation from each grade level, except for first and second grade. We just didn't have an interest from our first and second grade teachers. We had 10 schools. EL was represented, special education, an instructional coach, an administrator, and then the director of curriculum as well. And I failed to include the names of our committee in my presentation. It is in the board documents. I can read through those if you are interested. Okay.
These are the ones that are in board docs, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. The committee then reviewed the Arizona Science Standards and the Department of Education Science Adoption Rubric materials. And then we developed our request for a scope of the work based on that. And we also developed the criteria that we would score the vendor submissions on. And we brought that to you in January to open that RFP. The RFP was opened until the 16th of December. On the 20th, the committee reviewed all of the submissions, and we had 9 submissions from many different publishers. And we were initially going to only select the top 3, but we felt that the 4th one that we included was also a really strong contender. So we added that one as well. So as you can see, those were the top 4 that we selected. We opened that up to a 60-day public review, and those have been in the conference room in the district office. They're actually still there right now because there's a lot of things that are out there. And we took stakeholder feedback from those reviews. We also opened it up to all teachers. We provided them with the digital access so that they could review all 4 of the vendors. And we just asked that they tried a lesson from all 4 of them and provide feedback and input in a survey that we had for them. Then we had each vendor come and present to our committee. These were recorded for any members that might not have been able to attend. And then we had a discussion and running rankings after each of those presentations. The committee met and then after our 60-day review, our committee met last week to make that final recommendation. And each committee member selected a full lesson to review. They scored it from the top 3 vendors. We decided that that 4th one wasn't a viable option anymore for us, so we did not score the 4th one, which happened to be Savvis Learning. The evaluation tool that we used drew heavily from these standard ones that are up there on the screen. Those are based off of NGSS, so we did have to modify them slightly to meet our needs as a framework state. The committee also reviewed feedback from the community members and feedback from teachers who used the lessons from each vendor. So any questions on the process or the timeline?
Ms. Clymer, Mr. Owens, Ms. Moran.
No.
One of the board's requests was to look at the human growth and development piece. So during our presentations, we did ask each of the vendors to provide us with any resources related to that human growth and development. Because that is not a state standard in our science standards, most of the publishers did not have something that would have met that because it wasn't something they're going to add if it doesn't meet state standards, and it's also not part of NGSS standards. But McGraw-Hill does have a customizable resource that's titled Teen Health, which would allow us to really define and create our own course based off of what direction we were in. But we really are recommending that we need to further review that resource because it wasn't something we were specifically looking at of how we would design that course. And we really feel that we would need to get additional stakeholder and a review period for that as well. So that is the recommendation for that. So our final determination, it was actually such a beautiful thing. Our committee had complete consensus when we came to selecting the two curriculums. K-5 selected Inspire Science, which is from McGraw-Hill, and 6-8 selected Amplify Science from Amplify. We, along the whole way, we said that the two did not have to be the same because they may meet different needs for our middle school versus our elementary. And in the end, that is what they ended up doing, was selecting two different publishers. The impact would be over 5 years, $3.2 million, almost $3.3 million. That is for a complete curriculum for all students and teachers, covers the full 5 years of the adoption. Just a little background on science materials. That includes all things that are consumable and non-consumable. As with, most of our curriculums, there are pieces that are consumable, but science tends to have quite a bit more. Frogs and, bugs and all those things. Got to order those each year. So we did include making sure that our teachers would have all of the supplies that they needed for the full 5 years. Our hope is that after 1 or 2 years, we would be able to develop our own kits and provide those out of our science center. But we knew for the first 2 years, we need to for sure make sure. This price does include all 5 years though. And just some highlights of the two curriculums. So what's really interesting about the McGraw-Hill one is that they actually did create an Arizona state standard one. So the curriculum that we're receiving was designed specifically for Arizona. So it is highly rigorous. The publisher has created grade level curriculum specifically designed for Arizona, which aligns fully to our Arizona science standards. The committee felt it was very organized and easy to use. It had hands-on and problems-based. It's designed around the 5E lesson design, which starts with creating that curiosity or exploring all the way into experimentation. Clear objectives for every lesson and unit were provided. It connected to ELA and it has leveled readers, so there's literacy embedded in it as well. And it's also connected to math. There is digital along with unplugged activities for students. It provides ELL supports and differentiation for special education. It had a tremendous amount of built-in teacher supports. One of the things that sometimes our teachers find difficult is when they're trying to set up a lab, they're not quite sure how it should be set up or how it should really run through that lab. So there are specific videos designed just for showing teachers how to set up the lab, how to run the lab, and some possible outcomes that may come of it, along with providing those driving questions to create curiosity and drive them through the phenomena. It's clearly stated, they have clearly stated phenomena. So something that's very different with the 2018 science standards is it's all driven by this phenomena that happens in nature, right? And then creating curiosity around that of the why. Why is that happening? And so this is clearly anchored in that phenomena. And then there's multiple real world examples and connections throughout the lesson tied to that phenomena. It also provides flexible time for our K-5. We know that it's been very difficult to get science into each day's lessons. And so this has a flexible schedule within it that still addresses all of the state standards, but allows our teachers to do between 3 and 5 days, even 2 and 4 days. So it's very flexible for them, which was important for our K-5. Some highlights of Amplify is it's highly rigorous as well. It incorporates the three-dimensional teaching and learning, which includes those science and engineering practices. It's phenomenon-based again, with multiple examples and connections. It was the easiest to align to our standards and organize. The company has assured us that they'll actually help us create a dashboard that's specific to our needs. And we'll be able to use our current curriculum maps that we have to kind of drive some of that as well. The assessments that are built into it mimic the AZ Sci. They actually go outside of their company to design those assessments so that they're very valid and reliable. There's ELA and math integrated, differentiation and best practices are all included. The simulations, many digital simulations are included. They start the year with this launch unit that really sets up best practices and routines that are followed for the rest of the year. And it is the only 6-8 curriculum that meets all the requirements in Ed Reports, which is a warehouse that reviews curriculums submitted throughout the nation. I have just a little visual of what that looks like. And so those are the different areas that they score it on, and it is the only 6-8 curriculum that meets all of those. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, really quickly, it's unfortunate about the human growth and development. I was interested in seeing how that might integrate. So what are the next steps here? I mean, it's been several years at this point since we've had anything, and we've sort of been waiting, and every time we come up with something, it unfortunately doesn't fit. The pieces don't fit. So what if science curriculum wasn't the right place, or if they're not writing something directly for that, what are the options and next steps, timelines? Like, what does that look like from here?
I think the McGraw-Hill teen health piece is an option for us.
Okay.
But just like we did with this review, we would really want to get more input and have more eyes on it. So I think the plan was for next year to kind of do this same process of looking at human growth and development curriculum and opening it up for the same type of review.
Okay. Yeah, I just think sooner rather than later. It's been several years at this point that we've been working on it. And so a whole nother year to review it feels like a long time, but I understand that that's the timeline we're working on. So I'm interested to see that.
We can
So.
start that at the beginning of the year and have it by mid-year of what we would.
Yeah, and I know it's hard to integrate
Mhm.
something in the middle of the year. I mean, there's no training and everything's supported. So it's easier to do it on that timeline. I totally understand that. The second thing is, this might be a really weird question, but I'm thinking in 5 years is great. We're planning for, a long time. We're going to have materials and resources for the kids, but science, probably unlike math and English, changes. So in 5 years, things might be a little bit different. So how does that work with updates? I know part of the resource is online, so obviously that updates. So any of the books, workbooks, all of those types of things, I know we don't get 5 years worth all up front, but they do it over time. So how does that work? Do they actually provide updates to the curriculum? I mean, I would imagine that something is being updated in 5 years' time.
Right. So these standards are very new. I mean, 2018 is in standard world
Sure.
is pretty new. And the process to get to the end of those was long, and there was some controversial and battles through it.
Yes.
I don't see those changing anytime soon.
Okay.
The print material, they probably are not going to update those as much, but companies are constantly adding content to their digital platforms.
Sure.
And one thing with both of those curriculums is, even though it might be a digital component, it's printable. Everything is printable. So even though we may not have it in a nice little book, we can
Sure.
still print the most up-to-date
Yeah.
information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
No questions. Thanks for the presentation. I'm excited that we can have uniformity across the district. So, like you mentioned, a third grader at one school is getting the same. Just keep it consistent. That way they're all learning the same stuff. So I'm happy to see this.
Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but I will start by agreeing with Board Member Owen's point, which is, when we look at the science curriculum, it has a high price tag to it. But I think the consistency that we're going to see across the district and the quality of the curriculum is going to make a big impact on student success. So I'm happy to see us moving forward with this program. So my primary questions are about this human growth and development piece. So it sounds like we're teaching less now than we have in the past on this. And I'm just not sure why we seem to be shying away from this. Can you tell me more about that?
I don't believe we're shying away from it. In the past, we've done it in our 5th grade with a 30-minute lesson, truthfully. So we're not teaching much less of it. And this teen life that McGraw-Hill does have can be very extensive. But we need to determine, do we want these in our health classes? Do we want these in our science classes? Who is the teacher that will be taking on this responsibility? And we want to make sure with this curriculum, because it does have sensitive information in it. We want to make sure that we get enough input from all of our stakeholders that are meeting our student and our community needs.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We've always given the opt-out option for any parent who doesn't want their child to know how their body works. I don't anticipate that we would change that. I'm just perplexed with why, if we teach the life cycle of a butterfly, why we're not teaching the life cycle of a human. I don't expect you to answer that question. It's just a question that I have. So I disagree with we need a year to try to figure this out. We've been asking for this for the last 2 or 3 years, however long it's been suspended. So I would like us to add human growth and development to a board agenda in either October or November of 2023 to start the curriculum review process. And so that we can have an approved curriculum for human growth and development, which, to your point, is a very short piece of curriculum. This is not a district-wide curriculum in that every student won't be taught this. We will determine the specific grade or grades that this will be, again, optional for. But I want us to back into whatever that time frame needs to be so that we don't have another grade of students leaving our district, either promoting from elementary to middle or from middle to high school without the opportunity to learn about how their body works. I think this is a service that we provide to some parents who may not want to have this conversation with their children. So I think we're doing a disservice to our community by again, I do think we're shying away from this. I think we're afraid of this topic, and I don't think that we should be, because as long as we give parents and families options on whether they want to participate, we should give them the option to learn about this if that is what they think should happen for their child. So again, I would like to see us back into whatever that time frame is to be able to approve this as curriculum by, I'm going to say, March of 2024. So that it can be taught at the end of the 2024 school year, which is traditionally when we would do this sort of topic with our students before they are promoted to the next grade. So whatever that needs to look like for the stakeholder feedback, for looking at what the curriculum is, et cetera, that is what I would like to happen. So I'm not sure exactly how that should be included on the board member items for future agendas. Board member or President Zeidema, you might have some suggestions on what the time frame for that would look like.
I have that written down and I will add it to our list to make sure that we have it on the agenda in the future so that we can meet that timeline.
Absolutely. And we'll get it started right away.
Thank you.
Did you have any other more questions, Ms. Moran?
No, no further questions, just the gap on the human growth and development. Thank you.
I wanted to ask what our expectations are going to be for our teachers next year. Since we're going to start, you said 6 to 8, right? That's the plan. We're changing the timeline. What's our expectations for them in regards to using this curriculum? Say we board members are going on a school tour, should we expect that we're going to definitely be seeing them using this when we go through the classrooms? Or is it going to be more open for them to use whatever they want and just incorporate this how it works? Because it's a big price tag. So I want to make sure that we're keeping all of the information in our minds before we vote on whether to spend this much or not.
So our expectation for 6-8 will be that the first quarter is going to be really learning and unpacking what that curriculum is. Amplify has a lot of pieces to it. So we do have a training date already set in July to begin that introduction of it. And our expectation is that that first quarter, it really is tiptoeing into it. And our expectation would be that by second semester that we are fully immersed in it. And we will have a minimum of 3 days of training from the company for our 6-8 during that time.
Okay, and then next, what are we going to use as our measures for success? Like, what is our plan to make sure that we can determine that this is actually working? We're getting our students where we want them to be.
So we do have benchmarks for science. So that would be our first benchmark. And of course, 5th and 8th grade are AZ-SCI state assessment. So we would definitely be using that as our measurement as well. And we have data for several years showing what our students have been able to do at this point. And they are making growth.
Right, I see that. But so are we going to set specific, we are shooting for this target. We expect that our students will grow by this much by using this new curriculum.
Right. So our current outcome for 8th grade was 34% proficiency. I would have to get with Brian Owen and make sure that this is a doable, smart goal, but I would say, yeah, I'm going to wait and get with Brian on that.
Totally okay with that. I just want to make sure that we are, when we,
I almost stepped in it right there.
right, no, I just want to make sure that we are keeping that in mind and we are trying to have very specific goals that we're working towards. And with the understanding that, no, we're not expecting our kids to be at 90% next year, but what is it that we realistically think can happen? And I also understand we're going to need to look at this over a few years. We're not just going to see instant change in a year, but I just want to make sure we're working towards a specific goal.
Yeah, and we'll have to realign our benchmarks as well to this curriculum as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Nobody else has any other questions?
We can also look at teacher perception of the curriculum and also the retention, because I don't have specific data to say this, but I do think that we lose some of our science teachers because we aren't able to provide a good quality curriculum for them, and they're having to spend hours looking for resources and plans.
I think that's probably a really accurate statement, especially since we lose a lot of them to the high school where they can go and have a curriculum. So, I mean, I think that's very accurate. And I think that'll be a good measurement as well. So thank you so much for this
Thank you.
presentation. We are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. We have one speaker. I will start with our pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and discussion at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Our public speaker tonight will be Mr. Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Finnegan. Exactly this time last year, the education technology integration was proposed to the school board, and currently now we have 1 full school year of Chrome usage in classrooms. The proposed expenditure at that time was supported by Bin Bin Zheng's article stating that the technology has been shown to increase academic proficiency scores by 21 percentile points. You bought it, now let's prove it. Also, startup costs proposed were in the range of $1.4 million for personnel and technology professional training for students or teachers by open-end stipends, and over 11,000 devices and charging stations and upgrading the firewall. Also, you have to look forward to a 5-year device refreshment. That's going to cost $1 million each year for new computers and charging carts. These items will be increasing approximately 20% per year. At tonight's meeting today, I ask you, what are your 5 years SMART goals for technology in the classrooms each year? We now have 1 full school year of Chrome usage. What is your starting baseline data without Chromes for evaluation of your return on investment with Chromes? Kim Rand correctly asked last meeting, what is success? Where are we now? Where do we want to get to? Where do we expect to be? All good questions, but nothing has shown up in the proposals. What are your results for years 1 through 5? Ms. Clymer likes to have a performance report card. It's also another good idea. Which category of your students gained or declined from Chromes quantitatively? You have a mixture, a population of high achievers, average students, and low achievers. Did technology improve or deter math and English language quantitatively? Do a cost versus benefits analysis. Is it a good return on your investment dollars before you refresh devices? A school board member, there also in the PowerPoint was over 1,295 incidences reported with the technology in 7 or 8 different categories. One of the categories was grooming. I was shocked and I didn't really. These categories need to be operationally defined. A school board member's closing comments on Combs' PowerPoint slide was, I am very comfortable with minimal requirements in school year 1. We're not going to have a super high expectations. And if we don't get there, then we figure out why we didn't get there. When it's hope and faith, it doesn't work. There have to be SMART goals, due process, and accountability for results to happen.
Thank you. Next item is our executive session.
I move that we convene an executive session for discussion and consultation with our attorney for legal advice regarding benchmark testing security protocol.
Second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. We are going to move into executive session. Okay, we are going to reconvene our regular meeting and adjourn the executive session. Amy, I swear I'm gonna remember this next time. No motion here. Okay, perfect. So we're back in our regular meeting. Next up on the agenda is going to be our consent agenda items. I will go through and see if anybody has any they would like to remove or ask any questions about. Ms. Clymer?
No, there are a lot of items on the consent agenda tonight, but no, I do not want to remove any. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, do you have any questions or any items you would like to remove?
I do not. Thank you.
Ms. Moran, do you have any questions or any items you would like to remove?
I do not want to remove any items, but I do have.
Just 1 second, I'm gonna have them. Oh, okay, we'll try again. One
Okay.
sec. Sorry. Okay, good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. I do not have any items I want to remove, but I do have some questions or comments on some items. Would you like me to name those items, or do you want me to just, how would you like to do this?
Well, I have one I need to remove and then we'll do questions and we can approve consent agenda and then we'll talk about the one we need to remove.
Excellent.
So I would like to remove item II, the job description, updated job descriptions. So we will remove that one. And then if you have questions, we'll do your questions.
Okay, excellent. I have a question on item 7I, which is the basically teacher new hires. I didn't see as many school campus teaching positions being filled as expected. How many approximately how many openings will we have, or do we expect to have as of the start of school? I guess I would like an update on our staffing situation for teachers with the beginning of school being 6 weeks away.
Yes, I will have Director Rex come up and answer that as best she can.
I believe I'm on. Yes. Okay, very good. Hi, Board Member Moran. So currently just taking a quick look, it changes by the moment, but we currently have 34 certified positions open, plus 6 contracted guest teachers, which are also certified positions. So round number of 40.
Okay, and Director Rex, do you know how that compares to prior years, or can you give us an update as to our game plan to fill those? I know there is an item later in the agenda about contracted teachers. That might be one of the answers, but I would love any feedback that you have for us on that.
So Board Member Moran, I can't comment today on how we looked this time last year. I'm sorry, I don't have that data, but I could certainly look into that. Yes, one of the items that we are looking into is the contracted services and that RFP that we'll talk about later. We are also continuing full recruitment press. All teams are working on that right now, including the principals.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a comment on item K, which is the classified personnel employment position change. I was very encouraged to see the hiring of our new Director of Transportation. Welcome aboard, Director Williams. I look forward to the operational and cultural changes that you will implement in our transportation department in the upcoming year and years. So wonderful to see that. My other comments are on items C, C, and D, which is the approval of 2 grants, one for the summer enrichment program and one for the governor's office LEA's grant program. I was pleased to see that the governor's grant for the summer school came to fruition, which is about $350,000. We weren't sure what the status of that was with the turnover of our governor. And in addition, pleased to see the $550,000 in previous plus up programs that are being allocated to LASD. These grants of almost 900,000 are critical to our continued recovery from the pandemic impact and are much appreciated by the governing board, staff, students, and families. With these grants, we will continue our positive momentum towards successful outcomes. And my last item is actually a request on consent agenda item related to consent agenda item JJ, which is the approval of revisions to the career development and performance compensation plan for 2023-2024. I know that as a board, we have requested in the past to look at our system of teacher compensation, teacher reviews, the career development and performance compensation, kind of that entire encompassment. And the review piece was put on hold with the transition of our new superintendent coming on board. So I would like to add to a future agenda item that the current career development and performance compensation plan be examined and evaluated for changes for the 24-25 school year. I understand it is late in the game at this point to propose any changes to what is being proposed now under the current administration, which has been very resistant to changing. But I'm hopeful that our new administration will address this system for improvements going forward. So again, to summarize, I would like to see on a future agenda the topic of addressing the entire teacher compensation and evaluation process and system, including the career development and performance compensation plan for the 24-25 school year. Thank you. Those are all my comments and questions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had one more that I needed to pull. I wanted to pull off item KK as well. And I don't know if we could just talk about it because it's not about me wanting to vote against it, but more that I just feel like we owe an explanation to our community to make sure they know we have fully thought about this. So I can, if we need to just pull it off, we'll just do that for that discussion. So just to keep us on track, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented minus item 7II and 7KK.
I'll second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. We will start with item 7II. This was pulled so that Director Reichs could share some information with us.
Good evening, President Zaidama, governing board members and attendees. I have two corrections there are two job descriptions that I have a correction on under this agenda item. So for the Director of Federal Programs job description, I need to request please to correct the title to the reporting manager, changing from Executive Director of Student Services to Director of Teaching and Learning. And that's to be consistent with our organizational chart change that was approved on May 9th. And then the second correction is on the district media specialist to correct that supervisor title to the Director of Teaching and Learning. It had the old title for that position, that supervisor. Executive Director? Okay, excuse me. I'm so sorry. So the Director of Federal Programs supervisor should be Executive Director of Programs and Instruction. My apologies.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this item? Ms. Clymer?
No, you just answered it. I was questioning why a director would be reporting to a director, but you just answered that question. So no questions here.
Mr. Owens? Ms. Moran?
No questions.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to approve job description revisions for Director of School Safety, Director of Federal Programs, and Media Specialist as presented with the corrections made by Director Reichs.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. So next, we're going to move on to the approved change to the walk boundary and second reading for the adoption of revisions to policy EEAA walkers and riders. I asked to pull this just because I had a parent that reached out to me, and I feel like if this parent reached out, there's other parents that definitely feel this way, that was specifically concerned about how we hadn't talked about how this was impacting our students in regards to safety. And I want to make sure that our community knows that safety is very important to us and that we are definitely taking all of that into account when making this decision. Me personally, I will share that I never wanted to do this, but I understand why we're here. I didn't like it when we had to do it the first time. I get why we're here. I understand that we have a new director now, and hopefully this is not going to be necessary and we're going to find a way to not do this. But I do believe that overall, parents being able to plan accordingly of what their kids are going to have for transportation is actually going to have our kids be safer, because the idea that parents could have already left and then they get notified that there's no bus for their kids, and kids who they would have driven to school are now having to walk to school because nobody's there to take them, puts them in a more unsafe situation than if they had known ahead of time to plan. And also, one of the things we did just approve is the difficult and hazardous routes, where we automatically are driving those students if they have difficult or hazardous areas that they have to cross. So we are looking into all of that and making sure that if there is an unsafe area that kids are having to walk through, that they don't. We still bus them and we figure that out. So I just wanted to make sure that we are letting the community know that we are taking all of that into account, and none of us are making this decision lightly. None of us want to do this. We're just trying to make sure that we get as many of our students to school on time every day as we can with our buses, and we're working with what we have in front of us as far as staffing goes. So does anybody else have any other comments or anything they want to add to that? Ms. Clymer?
No, I don't.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, no, you did it exactly the way we all feel. So thanks.
Ms. Moran?
The only thing that I would add is that I am directly impacted by this change. I live in that 1 to 2 mile radius. That means that my son will not have a bus to start the school year. So when I approve this change in policy, I don't want to do it because I'm directly impacted by it, but I do understand that I would rather have reliable transportation and know he's not having a bus than get a text at 5:30 in the morning saying he's not going to have a bus on that particular day. So I understand the struggles, but I just want to reiterate the fact that we have a new director coming in. We acknowledge that things have not run as well as they could have, and we are hopeful that that is going to change, but those changes are going to take time. So I know the intention of this board is that we will change this policy back, and we will proactively add routes back as we have, not we personally, but as our director of transportation determines that we have dependable, reliable drivers and we can add routes back, we will do that throughout the year. So this is not a policy that is set that we won't even look to improve and get back to that 2 mile radius from the 1 mile radius. We will get back as soon as we possibly can, and as soon as we get more staff and we rebuild our transportation department.
Sorry, turn it off. I'll make a motion to approve the change to the walk boundary from 1 to 2 miles as presented.
Second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is our action discussion items, and our first item will be the approval of science curriculum adoption. Sorry, that will be Director Combs.
Governing board, we are recommending that the adoption of McGraw-Hill Inspire Science for K-5 and Amplify Science for 6-8 be adopted for our school year 23-24 and 24-25 for K-5.
Does anyone have any further questions or comments since we already discussed this earlier? Ms. Clymer?
No questions. One comment, not necessarily for Director Combs specifically, but just the district at large. I think that, this is obviously a large dollar amount. We're making a significant investment in our students, which is exactly what we are here to do. So thank you for your hard work and your committee's work in doing this. I know you're doing this on your off hours and evenings and things like that, trying to get this done outside of your daily time. But it is important, as Mr. Owens was saying earlier, to have a consistent approach. No matter what school you go to, no matter what grade you're in, you are getting the same curriculum everywhere, and kids are getting the opportunity to learn the same things at every campus, which is important. So back to my original comment is I just want to implore the district to make sure that we are doing the trainings, that we are giving our teachers all the resources that they need, without overwhelming them. Obviously, we have lots of things going on, but it's important that every parent feel like their child is getting the same opportunity, no matter where they are. And it's difficult as we go from campus to campus to campus, and we see all of these amazing resources being utilized at some and not at others. And that's just going to take time for complete adoption. It doesn't happen overnight, but with our math curriculum, now with science, we are making some amazing progress in terms of resources to give our teachers and our students. So I'm just really hopeful that we can continue to deploy them in a way that is helpful and useful to teachers, but also with the expectation that these will be used with fidelity across the district. So thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and the staff and teachers and community members who provided input during this assessment and everything like that. I'm excited to get uniformity throughout the district for all the students, especially so they can meet the benchmarks and that we're teaching them the things they need to know. And yeah, that's all.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, I think this is a step in the right direction for student success. I think it is a step in the right direction as a district to recognize our numbers and where we are now versus where we were when the best practice was to piece together a curriculum based on what we could do. And this really is going to help take us to the next level when it comes to our science. We've done it with ELA, we've done it now with math, and this is just the next piece of the puzzle. So I am very excited for our future success.
Thank you guys for putting the time into this and really digging into all these different curriculums and deciding as a team. I like to hear that it was a unanimous decision, basically, that you guys were all on the same page about what was the right thing to do. That makes me feel more comfortable, because a little bit I was like, but aren't we losing some consistency by not having the same? But if you guys feel that's the best way to do it and the entire team agrees, then I'm all on board. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the science curriculum adoption as presented.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Yay, new science curriculum.
I would just like to
Congratulations.
thank you as well for this investment in our students. But I'd also like to thank our committee members. They put in many, many hours, unpaid, and really took this job very seriously to provide the best input, to be very thorough, to be really informed about what we selected. And they were just an amazing group to work with. So I want to thank them as well. So thank you.
Congratulations to everyone.
We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Approve request to release solicitation for contracted educational staff and support services. This will be by Executive Director Vaughn. We haven't changed the title. Does that start July 1st? I just want to make sure I'm calling you the right thing.
Yeah, that starts July 1st.
Okay, perfect.
It'll
So
be
you
a
have a
change
couple
for
more
all of
weeks
us.
to figure out what you're going to say. Okay.
All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss a potential request for proposal for contracted staffing. This request is to release a formal procurement. It is one part of a plan the district is putting in place to help ensure that the district is staffed appropriately for the next school year. Each year, Litchfield and other districts fill vacant positions in part with help from contracted staffing agencies. These agencies become particularly important in very hard to fill areas such as special education. This summer, we've also had a particularly hard time filling positions at certain middle school campuses. While we've had some success in getting contracted support with these vacancies through the existing cooperative contracts available to Arizona school districts, we would like to take the strategic step of issuing our own procurement and entering into a contract specific to Litchfield with responding vendors. Our hope is that by doing so, we will accomplish several things, including we will be formally communicating to the contracted vendors our specific need, which we've seen can spur hiring on their side to help meet our needs. We will also be distinguishing ourselves from other school districts by allowing the vendors to update their pricing. This could provide the vendors an incentive to place their employees at Litchfield schools before other districts, because we're paying a rate much closer to the prevailing market rate compared to districts who may be relying on the cooperative contracts that could be several years old. They're typically good for up to 5 years. It's important to note that the $6 million estimate on the procurement is a rough estimate of all the contracted staffing costs that may be incurred under the new potential contracts and is not all new spending. It includes continuation of existing contracted staff. Specifically, we've paid $3.6 million to date in the current fiscal year for contracted staffing under cooperative contracts and have purchase orders issued for $5.2 million. The $6 million estimate is a continuation of that $3.6 million under our continuing under our proposed contract, an estimate of some of the existing encumbrances clearing in the current year, as well as an estimate of $1 to $2 million of additional contracting due to existing vacancies. As always, the district prefers filling our positions with our own employees, and the Human Resources Department will continue partnering with schools and departments to do what we can to ensure we're staffed as fully as possible. Also, because these are contracted positions that are filling vacancies, even that dollar amount that we have spent, that 3.6 million, you have to remember that we also have salary savings and benefits because we aren't paying a district employee to do that work as well. But at this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have. I do have some additional information on contracted staffing that we have hired so far this year and what that need still looks like, if you'd be interested in hearing that.
Ms. Clymer, did you have questions? Yes, you'd be.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear it if you have the information. Would you like me to ask my other questions first and then you can answer them together? I want you to clarify, you said right now we have 3.2 million in current contracted employees, and we have 5 million approximately in open POs, basically, that we could spend up to. So what is the estimate? I'm just trying to do the math based on what we're actually spending versus what we budgeted to spend versus now the 6 million is even higher than that. So what is the new spending? What are we anticipating the new spending going to be in year one?
I'm thinking that's going to be more around 1 to 2 million.
Okay. And that is new spending in terms of contracted employees. However, not new spending because we would be spending it elsewhere on employees that were not filled with contracted employees.
Yeah, the pricing certainly doesn't align dollar for dollar, right?
Right.
It is more expensive to contract staffing than it
Sure.
is to have our own employees. But there is a component of that savings where you're effectively shifting budget from a salary and benefits arena to the technical term is purchase professional services. If you recall my budget presentations as we revised the budget throughout the year, in almost each budget revision, I was shifting budget from salaries and benefits to the purchase professional services area. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what would be happening.
Okay. Two other very short questions. Number one, do contracted employees earn performance pay?
They, I believe they're compensated like our employees. But that's a really good question. Okay, Leanne is nodding.
Nodding, yes, we do pay them performance pay. So,
Yes.
okay, so they're like a normal employee, they just get paid more, basically.
They're
I realize that the cost is shared with a contracted service, but from our perspective, they are
They
just more
cost more.
expensive,
Yeah.
but they cost more. So they do get performance pay. The second question is, if we use contracted service employees, I'm not using the right terminology, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
For hard to fill positions that we have requested stipends for teachers, I'm thinking specifically L. Thomas Heck, some of our other Title I schools that have been hard to fill. Are they eligible for additional stipends?
So it would depend on the stipend itself. If I recall correctly, the L. Thomas Heck one is an example. I specifically put language in there saying contracted staff was not eligible.
Okay.
But otherwise, contracted staff are eligible. So it would depend on the specific stipend.
Okay, I'd like to, this is not relevant necessarily to this conversation, but just based on that answer, I'd like to make sure that we have discussions in the future about contracted employees receiving additional stipends because they're being placed where we're paying them to go. So giving them another $2,500 to be a job that they didn't pick for themselves, I think I would much rather offer that to another teacher here at Litchfield and convince them to go versus paying an employee that's already getting paid more than somebody else. That does not seem fair to our current employees.
Which is why we did carve them out. Yeah.
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 Anyway, just if we have to do that moving
Yes.
forward, I think that's an important distinction as we move to do this. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Owens.
No, I want to thank Board Member Clymer for asking my question.
Ms. Moran.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to comment that I am glad to see us looking at all the options needed to make sure that we are filling the positions that we have open. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the meeting, and we have traditional ways of filling those, but I'm glad that the district administration is willing to look at options that maybe we haven't quite explored before, and maybe we haven't needed to. Although the preference would be to hire our own full-time certified employees and, and make them, quote unquote, part of the Litchfield family. For long-term, cohesion and culture and all of that sort of thing. But I think we have to do the best with what our options are right now. And I think this will hopefully help to fill the box. And of course, the result or the goal is student success. And our students cannot be successful if we have gaps in our teaching positions. So I am grateful to add another option to our choices.
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Clymer asking all our questions. Usually that's what happens when I get to go last, is everybody asks all my questions first. And I agree that I'm glad we're looking at all options and making sure that we are not leaving any stone unturned with trying to make sure that we fill all our teacher positions so that we don't have our classes any bigger than they have to be next year. So thank you for that. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the request to release a solicitation for contracted educational staff and support services as presented.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is our open enrollment availability for 23-24 school year. This will also be presented by Executive Director Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss the open enrollment capacity for the 23-24 school year. Open enrollment is the process by which students who live in the district boundaries can request to attend a school different from their school of residence, or where students who do not live within Litchfield Elementary School District's boundaries can request to attend one of our schools. The open enrollment process is driven by state statute, State Board of Education guidance, as well as local policy and regulation. Whether or not a student's application for open enrollment is successful is primarily driven by the capacity of the school, grade level, and program they're requesting. Tonight's agenda item presents updated information regarding capacity for additional open enrollments for next school year. If this agenda item were to be approved, the district would be able to update the information on the district's website to provide more up-to-date information to constituents considering open enrollment for their families. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Clymer,
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Owens,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
No questions. Thank you for the update.
I have no questions. Thank you for the update. I will entertain a motion.
I move to improve the open enrollment availability for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Next, we will move on to the approval of public hearing and special meeting dates and times for June 23rd and July 5th. This will also be presented by Executive Director Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss a potential request for an additional governing board meeting to be held on Friday, June 23rd at 11 a.m. and Wednesday, July 5th at 1 p.m. These meetings are intended to allow the district to comply with legal requirements around the proposed and adopted budget for fiscal year 2024. If you have any questions, I'm certainly available to answer them.
Ms. Clymer, any questions?
No.
Mr. Owens? Any question? No? Okay, Ms. Moran,
July 5th.
July 5th. Well, it was July 5th or July 3rd, so we thought July 5th would be better.
Okay.
You are able to call in and do it virtually if you need to. Ms. Moran?
No questions. I will just say maybe for board member Owens's, for explanation is I believe the only item that will be on that agenda is going to be approving the budget, which we will preliminarily discuss on the 23rd. So it should be short and sweet.
I don't like it either. We're trying to accommodate our brand new superintendent who is already had a prearranged trip.
I was
So-
trying not to call him out.
I was
That's-
sorry.
You don't throw him under the bus, Melissa.
No, he had a prearranged vacation and I think it's totally acceptable for him to take his prearranged vacation and we're all going to do our best. It's going to be a fast meeting. So if there's no questions, then we can entertain a motion.
I move to approve the public hearing and special meeting dates and times as presented.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Next on our agenda, we're going to move on to the information section. We'll start with our first reading of governing board policy revision, JLCD medicines, administering medicines to students. This is going to be presented by Executive Director DeCoste, who is joining us via Zoom. So
Good evening, President Zeidema and members of the board. Can you hear me?
we can.
Fantastic. So these are ASBA recommended changes to our JLCD policy, and then we made some minor changes to our regulation. And I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have after this first reading.
Ms. Clymer, any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Owens,
No, thank you.
Ms. Moran?
No questions.
I have no questions either, so we'll move on to this is just a first reading, so it'll come up in our next meeting. Okay. We'll move on to the next item, first reading of governing board policy revisions, IGA curriculum development, IGD curriculum adoption, IJJ textbook supplementary materials selection and adoption, and this will be presented by Dr. Doozy.
Yes, Madam President and members of the governing board, I'm here to present the first reading of IGA, IGD, and IJJ. This includes laws that were passed by Arizona legislator to have open meeting laws when come in regards to selecting either committee work to make selections on textbooks or curriculum. And so this would just align to that new law if approved at your second reading. I'll take any questions.
Ms. Clymer?
Would this refer to, let's say, the committee that just approved the science curriculum? So they would continue to meet as normal and they would just be posted and meet in a public place so that it could be observed if people
Yes.
chose to attend. Okay.
And
Thank you.
that is how those took place currently.
Yeah.
They were all open meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
No questions.
I have no questions either, so we will move on to the next item, which is the first reading of governing board policy revisions, GCBA professional staff salary schedules, GCCA professional staff general leave, GCQC resignation of professional staff members, GDBA support staff salary, GDCA support staff general leave, GDO evaluation of support staff members, and GDQB resignation of support staff members. This will be presented by Director Reichs.
Hello again, President Zeidema, members of the governing board and meeting attendees. This evening, we present first reading updates to the governing board policies mentioned. I'll just highlight a few reasons behind each change. So policies GCBA, professional staff salary schedules, and GDBA, support staff salary, are updated to reflect the fiscal year 24 salary placement chart updates. Policies GCCA, professional staff general leave, and GDCA, support staff leave. These have been updated to reflect the change in name and systems from iVisions to employee access. Additionally, GDCA includes an update to the student transporter earned leave accrual based off of the 30-hour minimum position for those positions. And then policies GCQC, resignation of professional staff members, and GDQB, resignation of support staff members, has been updated to reflect the fiscal year 24 contract language that incorporates liquidated damages. And then lastly, policy GDO, evaluation of support staff, classified staff, has been updated to move from a twice per year evaluation to a one time per year evaluation. And that update is to be more consistent with general business practices for that line of employees and staff. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Clymer?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
I have none. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
No questions.
I have no questions either. Thank you so much. Next, we are going to move on to our reports. We will start with our governing board reports. Ms. Clymer, you can go first.
I will try to make this really quick. There's actually some really fun things. I think the end of school is almost as fun as the beginning of school in terms of getting to do all of the fun things that we are offered as board members. So The district retirement celebration and Pride Awards is always a fun time to see everybody come together. So congratulations to all the Pride Award winners. For those watching or here that don't know about the Pride Awards, they are selected by your peers and your colleagues, which is even, more special that people on your very own campus are recognizing the value that you bring to students and to the campus. So congratulations to all of those winners, and thank you to our Education Foundation that provides a very nice monetary reward for that as well. The white tank ribbon cutting was awesome and fantastic. Sam, thank you for your great job in having sort of the electronic agenda and allowing people to sort of view it at their leisure. And all of the people that were there were just small and big parts of that entire process that has taken years to get there. It is exciting to see the principal and the staff there just overjoyed and so excited to get their hands on this new campus and all that it's going to bring for their students and families. So congratulations to everyone, and to Dan especially for, no more questions from the governing board about when this place is going to open or how much it's going to cost. So congratulations on getting that done. It's really a beautiful building. Also, we all typically sign up to help celebrate 8th grade promotions across the district. And this year I was able to celebrate with the Wildcats from Western Sky, partially because my daughter was also promoting. So I wanted to be there to watch, but also because I just love shaking a bunch of sweaty hands and giving hugs to a bunch of 8th graders. So it is the best part of the year for me. So congratulations to all of our 8th graders and their families for breaking out of this place, right? And going on to high school. So good luck to you. And last, I just want to say, I know all of us up here attended Superintendent Gunning's goodbye celebration, and unfortunately she isn't here tonight, but I'm hoping that, maybe this note will get back to her. I just wanted to say a quick and heartfelt thank you for your years of service to this district, to our students, to our families, most importantly, our staff and everyone that has contributed over the years. I'm grateful for your hard work and your dedication to this district. And I wish you well as you are on to your next great adventure. So thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Thank you. Yeah, the highlight of my month was attending Verado Heritage Elementary School's promotion, and then also 2 of the Verado Middle School's promotion. That's really exciting. See all the kids dressed up and shake a lot of hands, some sweaty hands, cold hands, some fist bumps, some dead fish. All of the, but I got a lot of hugs to some kids I knew. That was exciting to literally see them grow up. And all I could think of the whole time was, the Billy Madison scene where the little kid's going, "I can't wait to go to high school, Billy." And I just wanted to grab every little kid's cheeks and just tell them, stay here as long as you can, right? Just stay here. But they're heading to high school. I'm excited for them. I hope they have a good summer, and I hope everybody has a really fun and safe summer, and it lasts a long time, and that we keep these cool temperatures.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, it sounds like Board Member Clymer and I had parallel months, but I also attended the retirement celebration and the annual Pride Awards, which is always a joy to show gratitude to our dedicated teachers and staff. Thank you also to the foundation for all of your hard work in putting on such a great event. Sam also did a great job in the organizing and facilitating of that event, which is just an awesome celebration. I also was able to attend the White Tank Learning Center ribbon cutting ceremony, and was very excited to tour this safe, beautiful, and functional facility. And I look forward to seeing the students and staff fill the campus with their unique needs and talents. A big thank you to our local voters who approved the past bond that made the funding for this facility a reality. Our students' increased success is due in large part to you, so thank you for your continued support. I was also able to attend the 8th grade promotion ceremonies at L. Thomas Heck Middle School. It was an honor to shake the hands and congratulate every student who's moving on and out of our district. I was impressed with their maturity and their professionalism. And I was particularly encouraged by the students who wore items to highlight their heritage. Native American students, African American students, Asian American students, Pacific Islanders, and Mexican American students. Keep on being proud of who you are. And speaking of being proud, happy Pride Month to all of the LGBTQ plus students, staff, teachers, alumni, family, friends, allies, and community members of LESD, where we celebrate our differences. So I'd like to close with lyrics from queer icon Brandi Carlile and her song, The Joke. I have been to the movies. I've seen how it ends, and the joke's on them.
Thank you. I will try to make this super quick as it was very busy with lots of fun, super celebrating things. And I attended the Pride Awards and the retirement ceremony as well. We did the White Tanks Learning Center ribbon cutting. I also was invited to attend the 4th grade wax museum at Barbara Roby, which was super fun. I think the wax museum is one of the funnest projects the kids get to do. And I learned some new things about a lot of people. I actually think the Coco Chanel, one of the girls that did Coco Chanel, was my favorite. She had like the most unique facts and it was really awesome. I just think it's fun what the kids think are important things to share with people when they do those projects. As a mom of lots of kids, got to go to a kindergarten graduation, a 5th grade graduation, and then as a board member, got to attend 8th grade promotion ceremony at Wigwam Creek Middle School, which I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to every year that we've had them since I've been on the board at Wigwam Creek. And I just love getting to go there and hear the speeches, the students that gave speeches. They just sound so grown up, right? You're like, you're still little kids kind of, right? But they sound so grown up and mature and responsible. And these are future adults that we have taught in this district and we have helped to shape them for the future. So I'm excited to see where these kids are headed as they move on into their high school careers and onward. We also had a special meeting where we hired our new director of SPED, and we also were able to hire Miss Jennifer Benjamin as our new executive director. And I will remember all the titles later, but I'm very excited for all of the people that the growth we're having, the people that are getting to move up, the people that are getting to do new things in this district. I'm excited to see the new jobs the new positions we'll be hiring in the future as we move forward, but I'm very excited for those positions to be filled so that they could hit the ground running this summer so that we are ready to go when school starts. I also had my last meeting with Superintendent Gunning. Her and I would meet once a week since I became board president to discuss board agenda meetings, like for our meetings, and also to discuss just random questions and stuff like that. And I found out right before her last meeting with us, where we had our celebration, that was going to be our last meeting together. And it was a surprise and made me kind of sad as this has been a year, right? This year, just this 23 year already, we're only halfway through, right? And there's been some changes that have happened maybe we weren't expecting when it started, but I am very happy to have been able to work with Superintendent Gunning in the time that I've gotten to know her and learn from her. And she is a phenomenal person who cares a lot about kids. And I'm glad that I was able to get to learn from her as a board member. So I also wish her well in her future endeavors. And I'm sure that she's going to go and be successful doing other things because that's who she is. But I did want to say that because I feel like we didn't get the opportunity to do that so much. I enjoyed going to her celebration for her. Thank you, Sam, for playing the guitar for us and singing. That was pretty special. And I thought that was pretty awesome. I hope we get to break that out somewhere else. We find another place where we can break that out in the future. If you didn't get to hear him, you need to hear him. He's pretty great, actually. I also attended the Trauma Sensitive Schools Symposium once school got out, which was pretty informative. It was an all-day event where they talked about different ways to work with students that are coming from trauma. And we know that kids are coming to us from all different traumatic events now. We all survived COVID. That impacted us, all the things that have happened. So it was a great way to kind of learn from other administrators that work, and there was board members there, just kind of figuring out how do we all come together as a team to help our students be successful as we move forward. And then I got to meet with Dr. Ducey since Superintendent Gunning's not here, so now Dr. Doozy and I have been meeting to work on things, which has been really nice. I really have enjoyed getting to know you better through our meetings, and I am looking forward to doing that in the future. I think I've always felt this way, but I do want to say that I think you are an additional and an amazing add for this district, and I'm so happy that we have you here. So I'm excited to get to keep working with you. Lastly, I've just been very busy as a mom. Like I said, I have a lot of kids. And so we got out of school, right? And I turned around and moved my now junior into a college dorm for the summer. And I got to attend a promotion ceremony for my son who's in the Navy, who was promoted to 3rd class, and he's now petty officer. So I got to go to that. And his sister, he asked her to come specially to do his pins for him in the ceremony. So it was just a special moment. And I'm just excited to get to celebrate our kids here in this district and my kids as well, because they're all doing great things. And I believe my kids are so successful because of what they got from this district when they came here. And I know that my littles are getting that right now. So I'm just very happy as a parent to get to have my kids here. And with that, we're done with board reports. Lastly, I want to thank all of the administrators who sent in reports. I specifically would like to thank the fact that all our principals got a report in for us this month. Thank you very much. Every school is doing great things, and there's lots of fun, exciting things, especially at the end of the year. So when we miss a report here or there in our monthly meeting, it's kind of sad because I know good things are happening. So I appreciate that every principal made sure we had a report this time, and I hope that we make sure that continues. I hope that our principals who are getting ready to be done for their little summertime off enjoy their summer vacation and get all the rest and relaxation that they can soak up so that they can come back ready to go when the school year starts again. And with that, we are done.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great evening. Night.